Russia recently announced that they're pulling their ground forces out of central and western Ukraine, and instead they're going to be focusing only in the east. They stated that they never had any plan to conquer Kiev at all, but they simply wanted to diminish Ukraine's military and also distract them from their actual plan the whole time, which was to protect citizens in eastern Ukrainian regions that they consider independent. However, to the west, it looks like Russia's invasion failed to take the capital and other major cities, failed to overthrow Ukraine's government, and now just using Donbas as an excuse to try to save face. So, was the entire invasion a feint? Just a deception to distract from their real goal? Or have they just failed? But real quick, this video's sponsor, Ridge Wallet. Wallets are annoying. They're big and bulky and a pain to carry around or even sit down with it in your pocket. Ridge Wallet solves that. They're slim and easily slides into your pocket, they hold up to 12 cards, plus room for cash, as well as RFID blocking technology to protect you from digital pickpocketers. They have more than 30 styles and colors, and they're made to last and backed up with a lifetime warranty. In fact, they're so confident you'll love it, they'll give you a 45-day test drive. You try it out, and if you don't love it, send it back and they'll give you a full refund. And also with Father's Day quickly approaching, it can make the perfect gift. So go over and check them out at ridge.com/covert. And with the code COVERT, you'll get an extra 10% off. Again, Ridge Wallet. Again, Russia's recent press conference stated that their real objective was never to conquer Kiev and other major cities in central and western Ukraine, but to liberate and protect Donbas from a Ukrainian attack. To do this, though, they needed to first destroy Ukraine's military across the country, so that way Ukraine could not fight back effectively in the east. This is what they called Phase 1, and now Russia is saying that they completed Phase 1 to an acceptable degree, stating over 1,500 of the 2,400 Ukrainian tanks and armored vehicles were destroyed, 112 out of 152 aircraft, 35 of the 36 Bayraktar TB2 drones, 148 of the 180 large air defense systems, just to name a few. In total, they reported that they destroyed 70% of all stockpiled military equipment that Ukraine had, and that Ukraine has no organized reserves left. And now they're saying Phase 2 is to secure the Donbas region. Russia has been claiming that Ukraine had been shelling the region, and they also approved a larger military operation against Donbas, which again Russia considers to be independent from Ukraine. To support this, the Russian Ministry of Defense released what they said were captured Ukrainian orders, dated January 22nd, 2022. These documents here basically state that Ukraine planned to prepare and have forces ready by February 28th, and then offensive operations be carried out in the JFO in Donbas in March. So with these documents, Russia can say their invasion was just a preemptive one to stop the Ukrainian invasion that was coming. And again, in this second phase, Russia stated that they will only be focused on the east in a ground war, however still conducting airstrikes on some targets in the rest of Ukraine as well. And we've seen now from some videos appear to show that Russia is drawing back its forces from around Kiev, such as this one here reportedly from Hostomel Airport, an airport that has been a key focus throughout the war, and it appears to show that Russia has abandoned it. So basically, the entire invasion of Ukraine was just over Donbas, and they did so to protect citizens there, according to Russia. However, the idea that Russia never intended to take over Kiev and other major cities outside of eastern Ukraine doesn't exactly make sense. It does make sense that if that was your objective, that you'd also have to strike at Ukrainian military throughout the country so they cannot be sent east. But Russia mounted the largest ground offensive in European history since World War II. If we disregard Donbas, they entered Ukraine along 3 different axes. Crimea in the south, from the northeast toward Kharkiv, and then also sprinting across toward Kiev, and also from the north straight down to Kiev from Belarus and the edge of Russia. These 3 fronts involved somewhere around 50 to 60 BTGs and roughly 50,000 troops. In total, they've lost over 350 tanks, at very least, which have all been verified and individually identified by Oryx, which is somebody you should definitely check out here if you haven't already. He not only has all of them listed, but he also has a picture of each one it's counting. On top of those tanks, he's counted over 2,000 other military vehicles of Russia that have been destroyed. That number is many, many more times than what Russia is believed to have lost in both Chechen wars combined, and after years of fighting. So if Russia really just wanted to destroy Ukraine's military capability, it would make much more sense to do so from the air, instead of launching an incredibly expensive ground war across the whole country, and losing so much equipment, including some of their most advanced tanks. Ground forces are typically meant to hold or conquer areas. Russia has one of the largest and most capable air forces on Earth. It would have been much less costly to have conducted a much larger opening strike, make sure to completely destroy Ukraine's air force, air bases, and long-range air defense systems. Then you could send in manned aircraft and bombers and strike Ukrainian ground forces throughout the country with impunity, flying high above the reach of shorter-range air defenses and manpads. But instead, we saw Russia attempt to seize key sites, like that Hostomel airport on day one. If it was never the goal to take Kiev, that airport could have just been struck from the air so that Ukraine couldn't use it. Also, seizing key cities like Kherson doesn't exactly match with an objective of destroying Ukraine's military and focusing on Donbas. However, there are a few reasons I could think of that would line up with Russia's recently stated goal that a large-scale ground invasion might have been warranted. For example, trying to cut off the ability of Western countries to deliver supplies and military hardware to Ukraine, which could then be sent off to fight in the east. But again, with air superiority, deliveries of any large equipment, like tanks or aircraft, could easily be spotted and could be attacked as well before they reached eastern Ukraine. Another reason for a ground invasion could have been the reluctance to rely upon or deplete their arsenal of long-range missiles, which is something I kind of talked about in my last video. So instead, the reason could be that they sent in ground forces to try to destroy the necessary targets. But it's worth noting that a large percentage of Russia's losses, including tanks and armored vehicles, were done by Ukrainian drones, artillery, and landmines on the road. Three things that would not have necessarily been a threat to them in Donbas. Yet in the end, whatever the truth is, Russia is turning its attention now to the east. Being able to consolidate their forces there and focus on a smaller region should make Russia's task easier. Just how far they want to advance into Ukraine from there, whether it's just the rest of Donbas or further into central Ukraine, remains to be seen. But it also seems reasonable to assume that this whole shifting in the invasion is just a way for Russia to end the war and try to save face, and that after they realized they could not take and hold Kiev indefinitely, and that resistance was much higher than expected, they could pull back, gain some ground around Donbas, and claim victory in their objective, and then also have more leverage over Ukraine in any future talks of a ceasefire. But also, at the same time, Russia withdrawing land forces from the west frees up Ukrainian forces to be sent east. As mentioned earlier, it also makes deliveries of military hardware from the US and Europe much easier, and now it even appears that Ukraine is launching more offensives, including a reported strike inside Russia on an oil storage facility. So the war does appear to be shrinking in scale, however it could become much more destructive with each side operating a majority of their forces on a smaller front. So the next few weeks will be interesting to watch.